Spotlight is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. It seeks to spotlight people, places, and events from around the Diocese of Youngstown that promote the new gospel of joy called for by Pope Francis. Your program host is Father James Korda.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Fr.Jim Korda. Today we're going to talk about missions, evangelization, and the church and parish life. And joining me in today's show is Father David Bridling. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much.
It might be good for the folks that are with us to get to know you a little bit better. So if you could just give us a little background, a little biography about yourself so they could know who you are.
Thank you. I am, as you said, Father David, I was born and raised in Nigeria, in the northeastern part of Nigeria. I went to school in Nigeria, became a priest, and then I was sent to Rome by my bishop to study. After my studies, I came back and I spent 7 years of my life teaching in the seminary. Thereafter, I was called back to the diocese to be a pastor of a parish. And I've been moving from parish to parish every 3 years. At the end of, last year, towards the end of June, I was called to come to this diocese. So my life has been a life of movement, journeying from one stage to the other, but it has been very busy.
Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you did in the seminary and some of the students that you encountered. I would imagine that was very fulfilling for you, teaching them and working with them. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I must admit it was a life that I loved because I was exposed to information. I learned so much more that I did learn when I was a student. But what was so interesting was at the beginning of my life, I met students who were older than me.
Oh, wow. So
they even reminded me that they were older than me, but I wasn't intimidated. Sure. But it was a life that was so challenging because there were so many students I had at the beginning. I had in one class 60 students, and in another class I had 45. And so my life was so engaging that sometimes I didn't know when the sun set.
Sure.
Yeah, but what I did learn was I grew. I was able to mature. I was able to know more about the life of the church. And I was able to expose my students to what lay ahead of them, especially when they became priests.
Let's talk about that, Father David.
Yeah.
Are there many delayed vocations in your country? I know here in the United States we have many men who basically become priests as a second career. Is that the same in Nigeria?
Not at all. In fact, the church in Nigeria has put a limit as to beyond 25, they will not accept the seminarian.
I see.
So 19 to 25 is the age, what you call the age bracket for acceptance into the seminary, because we have so many young people who are willing to give their life for the church as priests. So led vocations, but there are cases where you have one or two here, but very, very, very rare.
Now, vocations obviously are not an issue in Africa, correct?
It depends on where.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, because when I was in the seminary, it was an issue for our diocese. In fact, the first time we had 4 priests ordained at a point was a huge celebration for us in the diocese, but that has changed. Recently, we ordained 12 priests at the time, so that has changed. Sure. But in some places, it's still a struggle, but not as I see it here. Yeah.
What would be different there that calls a young man to want to give his life and devote his life to God in the church as a priest? Is it something that's going on, or what is it? What makes it different? Because we know here in the United States, many dioceses are experiencing the shortage and the fewer priest situation.
I understand. Well, I've seen this here myself. I think there are many things responsible. In some cases, there's what you call a genuine response to God's invitation to serve as a priest. There are other cases where people are attracted to the priesthood because of what they see in the life of priests that are already priests. So the glamour, the beauty, the happiness that priests exhibit, but also the what will I say? The thinking that with the priest, one has access to money, and so people do get into the priesthood with the hope they will have money and will have an easy life. And there are cases where people got disappointed because the money wasn't there, and it was very rough for them.
Well, we know very well, Father, as priests, that we're not in it for the money.
That's
correct?
quite true. Yeah, and that is one of the things that I kept telling my students when I was in the seminary, that if you're not here for the real reason, God will still accept you when you live here. So people did leave. But most of them were ordained, and they are happy in the priesthood.
We've got about a few minutes left of our first segment together. Let's talk about why you came here to the United States. What was the main reason, and what has been your experience so far in the United States?
Yeah, thank you. To be honest with you, I did not want to come to the USA a long time ago until I met Father Raymond Thomas, who came to Rome for his sabbatical in 1999. So we met in the house and we became friends. So he did invite me for 2 years nonstop. So eventually he won the case. So when I came to the country, I never wanted to change my mind again, because at the beginning, the United States that I saw on TV or as presented by politicians, I didn't want to be part of it. But when I came here, the people that I met were totally different from what I used to know about the USA. So Fr. Thomas did well because he exposed me to his friends, to his family, but to the church here. And so he didn't only become my friend, he made me gain more friends from here. So coming back was like growing in my friendship with many other people in the country.
So it just goes to show you that you really can't put a lot of stock in what you actually see maybe on television or in films, but when you actually have a relationship and personal experience with someone, it does give you a different outlook and a better picture of it all.
If I didn't meet Fr. Thomas, I don't think I was interested in coming here. I was happy to be in Europe, and I was busy going places in Europe. And I said there was nothing in America that I wanted to see or know. But he said, please come for a week. Oh, okay, 2 weeks. And I agreed then to be here for 2 weeks. Well, I said, let me stay here for 3 weeks. Then the year after that, I came back and I stayed for 6 weeks. Then from weeks, it became months. So I kept coming back, and I kept growing, and I kept developing my interest here. But above all, I knew much more than I had before now. I was going to even know about this country.
We're going to talk more in a moment. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Whether it's passing on medicine, a blanket, or something as simple as a glass of water, that's how compassion works. And that's how Maryknoll works, hand to hand to hand. For nearly 100 years, Maryknoll's been passing on your help to the priests and brothers working in 26 countries around the world. Maryknoll, an American Catholic organization, dedicates 86 cents of every dollar donated to their programs, serving the world's poor and powerless. And that's how it works. Compassion flows from your hand to the hand of someone in need. Hand to hand to hand. That's Maryknoll.
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 That's Maryknoll. That's Maryknoll.
There
numbers are growing. More than a year ago, more than a decade ago, more people now living in this state than nearly any state in the Union. 1 out of every 10 families in America, 1 out of every 6 children in America. 33 million Americans teetering on the brink of hunger, sickness, hardship. 33 million Americans descending into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm talking with Father David Bridling. Father David, let's talk a little bit about missionary work, because I think when I talk to you and have spoken with you in the past, there's a sense that being a missionary is somewhat part of who you are and part of who we basically all are as followers of Jesus. So let's talk about that whole sense of missionary and what does that mean?
Yeah, well, I think you summarized it so well that our life as people who are baptized is all about connecting with Jesus to the point that we cannot keep the news to ourselves, that we want to share with others. Mm-hmm. But, growing up, I saw missionaries from Europe who came to our diocese to announce to us the news of salvation. But what was missing in their approach was they didn't understand the language of our people. They didn't even understand the culture of our people. So what they did was to bring wholesale the message and the culture that they were used to. So, but for us as people of the ground now, we are making effort to making sure that the message connects to our world, connects to our people where they are in such a way that they can respond from within and give expression to the good news from within the culture and from within the reality that they live every day. So it is in stages for us because we have a variety of issues, a variety of realities at home that we try on daily basis to see how the gospel speaks and can speak to us. So if you don't, there are others who are willing to take away your people.
Right.
And for me as a person, it is not just evangelizing the people that we have already, but also trying to speak to those who are suspicious, those who do not understand anything about you as a church, those who don't even want to see you as a neighbor. So it's not just announcing the word, but also dialoguing with those who are not on the same page with you.
Exactly, and it's more than just, and it isn't forcing someone to adopt this faith or this religion or this belief, but it's really kind of showing by example. But also, I think it's so important, and you really hit the nail on the head when you said about incorporating one's culture, one's customs, because unless we're true to those, we're not true to who we are.
Well, that's quite true.
And so when we're true to that, then it kind of makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and then when we are true to that and it is coming from within, then there's the zeal, there's the enthusiasm to want to share this gift that you have received from God. But also it gives you, to use the language of Pope Francis, like a light to navigate through the issues of life, which is in Africa, that is the case. We have all sorts of cases. They have diseases. Sometimes they don't even know the names. So people need the light from the gospel to be able to see where is God here. Otherwise, people sometimes tend to go back to what they do know better before church came in. And so sometimes we say we do not want to have a situation where you have 2 legs in the water and 2 legs on dry ground like a frog, If the water is warm, you're out. If the ground is too hot, you're into the water. So it's like, we call it a schizophrenic faith where, where are you here? Are you here or you're there? So it is a constant engagement. It is a constant effort to making sure that the faith is valid, the faith makes sense no matter the situation we do find ourselves in.
When I use the word evangelization, what does that mean to you? What is it an important word? Is it a word that we should all embrace? What exactly does that?
For me, it means to use the language of is it Pope what's his name? Paul VI.
Yes.
Yeah. To announce the gospel of salvation, where we receive, by grace of God, healing, but also salvation from sin and the evil one, as he would put it. So, in African worldview, there's this constant attack from the devil. So the gospel becomes a weapon to fight him, to making sure that people see the power of God than to want to do things that are funny. But so that is where then it becomes a process where we listen to God, where we hear Jesus speak to us, and where we try to respond back from within the gift that God has provided. And that is why then it is important for those who are willing to announce that they are prepared. Because one time I was in Burkina Faso, another country in West Africa, I was so surprised that even some priests, because they were not properly trained to understand the demarcation between the gospel and the African traditional religion, they kind of married them.
I see.
So it was very conflicting, even in their day-to-day life, where they kind of leave the African traditional religion and gave it an impression as if that was the gospel. So that we are called to be aware of that. We had to make effort to making sure that our students knew and appreciated the African traditional religion well, but they also understood the gospel, the teaching of the church well, in such a way that if they have to announce the gospel, then we propose what they call the process of inculturation, which is a very rough but also a very demanding process.
Yeah. Let's. We've got about a minute or two left of our middle segment. Inculturation, is that something that's necessary or not necessary?
Oh, it is very necessary.
And why?
Because the gospel can't be preached from a vacuum. It has to be inserted, and it has to be done in such a way that the gospel, like what Jesus did at the incarnation, the gospel is incarnated by the culture and is given flesh to the message as God did in Jesus when he became one of us. So it is very, very demanding, because if you are not careful, you could cause a lot of trouble.
Sure.
And we have seen that already.
I'll bet. We're going to take another break,
Okay.
so please stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, I've been volunteering for 18, almost 20 years. What I do is help the elderly in their homes so that they can stay in their homes.
I think a lot of times the elderly in our society are forgotten, and that's unfortunate because they have so much wisdom to share.
The other day she told me that every night when she goes to bed, she thinks about her little angel, when her little angel's going to come and check on her the next day. And that's me, yeah.
Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, share the joy.
Welcome back to our show. I'm talking with Father David Bridling. Tell us, Father David, about the church in Nigeria. What exactly is it like? What is the atmosphere of the Catholic Church there?
Yeah, thank you. You know, the Catholic Church came to Nigeria many years ago, but it came to different parts of Nigeria at different times. Like the area where I'm coming from, the church is still very young. I mean, the Catholic Church, and So when the Catholic Church came to the area, there were already Protestant churches on the ground.
I see.
There were also the Islamic faith that was so strong. So the Catholic Church had it rough to even start the church. So, but it is growing, and people tell me that the Catholic Church is like a scratch of a match. You scratch it, it's a small fire, give it a chance, it will cover everywhere. So people are aware of that. So they are very scary allowing the Catholic Church to establish. I have gone through experiences with building a Catholic Church in different places where people refuse to sell me a piece of land because I'm Catholic.
Wow.
But that is gradually changing, but not in all places. Where I was before I came here, it wasn't easy. Even with the non-Catholics, it was a rough relationship.
Do you experience any kind of violence against Catholics there?
Yeah, well, not just Catholics, but Christians.
Okay.
In the diocese where I'm from, in some parts of our diocese, to be a Christian is to expose yourself to trouble and sometimes to danger.
Sure.
And people have been killed because of the faith. People have been attacked because of the faith. I'm a victim. I've been attacked one time in 5 days. My house was bombed 2 times. Then after that, they went to my village. They attacked my family. And so they attacked everything that had to do with me. So that was my chance to tell myself, hey, do you really love Jesus? Can you still stand for Jesus? And I was so proud, especially of my brother, because they said to him, if you profess Islam, we'll leave you alone. He said he would rather die than to profess Islam. So yes, there's some violence, especially when the Boko Haram, that is the terrorist group, came on board. Yeah, we suffered so much from that because in 2014, in less than 5 weeks, we lost 22 parishes out of 36. So that was a huge challenge. And a parish at home is not like here, where you have just one church. A parish could have 17, 15, 25 or more churches, well, small communities, but they have a priest, and the priest then utilizes what I hear now here referred to as prayer leaders.
Yes,
yeah.
parish leaders.
Parish leaders.
Yes.
So at home we call them catechists because they do organize every Sunday Sunday services without a priest. And some of them are able to do a communion service without a priest. But the priest then has to arrange himself every month as to where he will visit. As for me, that was my life before I came here. So every month I had a meeting with the catechist to say, okay, I will be here, I will be here, I will be here, I will be here. So at the end of the month, we say, okay, I was here. Okay, now next month I will be. So that was the life that we did. And it's still the case in many parts of the country. But in the big cities, you have a church and you have a priest or 2 priests, because some places you have 5 to 7 masses at the weekend. That could be very demanding.
And your churches are full?
Sure. When I was a parish priest, well, here you call it a rector. I was a rector one time of our cathedral at Rome, and there were 5 masses then. The first mass was 5:30 in the morning. That was what you call the American type of mass, an hour. It was loaded. So the second mass was 1.5 hours or 2 hours. It was super crowded. Then the third mass was 2 hours. Okay. The 10:30 mass then was the mass for those who didn't want to go home. So the mass could be there for 3-4 hours. People didn't care. They had time to dance, they had time to celebrate and to be with friends.
Now I would venture to say that in Ashtabula, where you have Mass, that it's probably not over an hour or 2 or 3 hours, but many people, when they come to church, love being there. But unfortunately, there are some people that want to kind of get in and out. What do you say, or how do you respond in sharing your personal experience in your home country about that?
Yeah, I have been able to talk to some other people as to have them change their attitude towards church, because I said, well, in a week you have 168 hours, and the Bible says we should give 10% of that, of this time. And I said, but what is the 10% of 168 hours? And I said, well, you don't have to give those 10% on a Sunday. What about in the week, you know?
Right.
But the people are so used to 45 an hour mass. So you could notice that people are already agitated when you're going beyond the limits.
Yes.
And they remind you, you spoke too much, you preached too long, to the point that you are careful that even when you want to explain, you want to teach, you want to catechize, you are always conscious of time. And that is a limit, to the point that people don't seem to celebrate the faith. It's like emotion I go through all the time. At home, people come to celebrate. For me, the first time Fr. Thomas came to Nigeria, I asked him to say the Mass, and he had the Mass for 3 hours.
Wow.
And I said to him, do you know that you were in church for 3 hours? He said, no. I said, look at your time.
Yeah.
When did you begin the Mass? He was so surprised. He
Sure.
didn't even know that he was in that church for 3 hours, because it was celebration and celebration.
Right.
And people came to celebrate. Here, so sometimes I have complained, for example, here, that we need to even talk about the music. I said, the music is not for the head. I said, it should be able to help me to worship. It should be able to help me to communicate. And for me, singing is not just with my mouth. My body should sing as well. That's why for us it's very easy to dance, because the music is also expressed in the body movement.
Right.
Yeah. So I am working hard, talking to people about changing their attitude towards time, changing their orientation towards Mass, that it is a celebration. So we need to celebrate, we need to connect with Jesus, and we need to allow Jesus speak to us so that we can speak to him. For example, then, people are finding it very difficult when I say, please don't talk before the Mass starts. When you come into the church, I tell them, sit quietly, try to enter the presence of God and step into this presence and allow God to talk to you and talk to him back.
Right.
But that is, it's a process that is slow, but we hope people are beginning to understand. But you know, people are so used to their 45 to 1 hour Mass. So why will you want to put 5 minutes more, you know?
Well, Father David, our time is up. We certainly appreciated your presence on our show.
Thank you.
And God bless you in your work here in our diocese.
Thank you.
And the day that you go back to Nigeria, please know you do with our blessing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you very much for having me here. It has been for me a blessing. And I so appreciate the fact that I was able to talk with you.
Thank you.
You just made me very popular, you know.
Thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
Spotlight has been a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Korda.